Hi, this is Mike Schmitz, and welcome to another edition of Screencasts Online. In this week's episode, we're going to take a look at a subscription service with a ton of promise called Setapp. Setapp is a service that is developed and curated by MacPaw, the fine folks behind great Mac software like Clean My Mac and Gemini. With Setapp, you get access to not only the awesome MacPaw software, but also a long list of other awesome Mac apps for one low monthly cost. What makes Setapp interesting is that it addresses a very real concern that many people have with subscription-based software. It's easy to justify a monthly subscription for software that you need to do your job, like TextExpander or 1Password. But what if your company doesn't see it that way? Or it's not something that you need professionally, like Day One? Subscription fatigue is a very real thing, and while subscription-based pricing definitely helps developers with a steady stream of income, it forces consumers to draw a line at some point and start saying no. And that line may be different for everyone, but as more and more developers switch to subscription-based pricing, everyone has to learn when to say enough. Now, Setapp aims to solve this by providing a bunch of quality apps for one single subscription, much like Netflix for quality Mac apps. The basic idea is that while you may be able to get more from individual customers as a developer, you'll be able to make up for that difference in volume by attracting a large number of recurring subscriptions and splitting the revenue between the developers of all the apps that are included with the service. Now, time will tell if this strategy will work, but from a customer standpoint, I think it's brilliant. Setapp already has several quality apps that have signed on to the service, and new ones are added all the time. And when a new app gets added, there's an incentive to try it out because it's already part of your subscription. You don't have to pay to get access to it. I've been very impressed with the quality of the apps that Setapp offers, and have started using several that I probably wouldn't have bought outright, but I use all the time because they're already part of my subscription. And that's the whole idea behind the service. So in this episode, we're going to take a look at several productivity apps that are part of the Setapp service to give you an idea of what's included. Now keep in mind, this is just a small sampling of apps that are included in the service, but there's some of my personal favorites. Let's dive in.